in addition to the relative positioning and the absolute positioning that's been discussed in the last couple exercises, there's also something known as fixed positioning, where the position is set based on the overall window size of the browser, not just other elements within the browser. This is discussed briefly on page 194. Also on page 194, there is an inclusion of information about how to stack things using cascading style sheets, how to stack your elements. And we saw an example of that when we were doing some testing or experimenting with the actual settings on the leaves, these leaf pictures that were to the left of the navigation items. When we set one value, they'd go over to the left a little bit, another value they may go to the right, and we were able to visually take a look at how that overlaps other images. When it was going to the left, it was overlapping this background image, and when it was going to the right, it was overlapping the navigation images. This can be a powerful feature for highlighting things, and in fact, in this particular exercise, we're going to try to make your page look like figure H13 on page 195. You'll notice that the leaf images change their position slightly, and then they'll have a green background that will be layered underneath the images. One of the things you'll learn in this exercise is about the z-index. The z-index is illustrated on figure H11 on page 195. The higher the z-index, the closer to the top that image will appear. Items with lower z-indexes will appear underneath the images with higher z-indexes. We're going to start the stacking elements exercise by going to step 1 in the Lakeland cascading style sheet file. We're going to find the main nav selector. We found that here. And then we're going to change the left padding from 0.25 to 0.5. So we'll double that. And we're just going to increase the width a little bit from 6 to 7 units. Then we're going to go down to the main nav LI item. It's right here. And we're going to go ahead and change that. And remember, with the padding, when we have multiple units, we are adding padding to multiple sides of that rectangle or that box model that we've talked about. Remember, these box models obviously have a top, a left side, a right side, a bottom, and each of these designations work for one of those sides. So there's going to be 0.25 padding around 3 of the sides and 1 around another side. Again, you should experiment with this and see how this ends up looking. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the LI image style, and we are going to change the left value from a minus 20 or minus 40 to a minus 22, and this value should look familiar. That's the one in the last exercise that we manipulated a little bit and changed around. So if you remember, when we manipulated this last time, it changed how far to the left or right that the little leaf icons were positioned, and that's what we're doing here now. We're moving it basically further to the right. When you reload the page in your browser, you'll see that the result is we've actually moved the images of the leaves to the right, and so now they're overlapping the navigational elements. Before we made these changes, they were a little further to the left, and they were separate from the navigational elements. There was the leaf image, then the navigational element, leaf image, then the navigational element. But now you can see the leaves are actually right over the top of the navigational elements. So on step 5, we want to return to the About Us code. I'm going to open that up right here. And we're going to look for the segment that is below the UL tag list for the nav bar. And that would be right here. We want to create a new div element. And there's not going to be any content in this div element as per the instructions in your textbook. But we are going to give it an ID, and the ID for this element is nav accent. This is where we're actually going to build the accent that's going to be behind these actual leaf images, the green accent that's shown in the figure on the next page in your textbook. We'll save this page, then we're going to go back to the Lakeland Cascading Style Sheet. We're going to complete step 6. Once we've completed step 6, which is putting all the name value attributes related to the nav accent selector, we'll save the style sheet. And then when we reload the page, you'll notice there is this new bar that we just defined. However, the bar is actually over the top of instead of underneath the actual leaf images as shown in the figure. So we're going to want to use the Z indexing to correct this. We'll reopen Notepad++ in the Lakeland Cascading Style Sheet file. And the first thing we're asked to do is go to the nav accent selector, and we're going to add a new line for the Z index. And we're going to set the Z index to 1 in this case. And then we're also asked to find the Z index or set the Z index for the actual main nav UL. Now again, remember that the highest value in the Z index will be the one that's on top. This nav accent is the green bar that we just created, and we are creating a nav index of 1. If we want this to appear underneath the leaves, that means that the leaves have to have a higher Z index. So if we go up to the main nav UL selector, and it looks like we're right there now, and we will add a Z index, and we're going to put the value of 2, again because we want these actual index items, the nav bars and the images of the leaves, to show up on top. We want it to be a higher Z index than the accent bar, the green bar, which was a 1. So a 2 would work here. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then I will go to my web browser, and we're going to reload the web browser. Pay special attention to this green nav bar here. Alright, so now the buttons actually go over the top of this green nav bar, and the leaves are over the top as well. I'm going to go back to the actual style sheet again, and I'm going to change this Z index. Right now it's 2, where the actual accent bar was 1, and I'm just going to make it 20. These are the leaves, or the actual navigation items. Again, it's still larger than the leaves, or I'm sorry, larger than the accent bar, so it should show up on top. We're going to save this file, go back and reload the page, and you'll notice it's still in the same order. The actual number in the Z index is not real important. It's just how it's related to the other numbers that are defined in Z index. So the larger ones are always on the top. It doesn't matter if it's 1 digit larger or 12 units larger. And the smaller always toward the bottom. Where it will matter is if, as you start to add multiple layers to your pages, you're going to want multiple values available to you. We'll go ahead and save this now, and if you've completed this exercise, you're ready to move on to the next one.